So while everyone's coming in, so just to introduce myself for those of you that don't know me. So I'm Sam from Elite Agent. We founded a magazine nearly 10 years ago, and we've been publishing that magazine for real estate agents for that long. Late in 2022, I started a blog called AI Powered Agents because I could see the writing on the wall, which I'll talk a little bit, like, pardon the pun. I could see the writing on the wall just a little bit when it came to AI and people in writing. And so, like, I'm not an AI writer or anything like that, but I do use AI as a co-pilot. And I remember thinking back then, for those of you that haven't heard the story, I thought, whoa, this chat GPT thing is pretty good. And as I got to use it, it got better and better. And I thought to myself, I have two choices. One is I can shut up and just make my stuff really good, or I can try and get ahead of the curve and teach you guys a bit more about how to use AI tools in your business. And I chose the latter because I thought that the other strategy was not really on brand for me, and like to think that we can ride this wave of innovation together. So anyway, I'm really stoked to be here, really stoked for you guys to be here. Before I truly get started, I just want to make sure, if you're having troubles with your video, that's fine. But if your video works, turn your video on, because I love to see your faces. And I just want to take a moment to recognize you all for taking a moment out of your busy day. Like, I know that this AI stuff it can be daunting and sometimes a little scary. That's what they tell me. I was a little bit scared when I first started using it as well, because I was thinking, will it take my job? But I think it's an accelerant, not a replacement. So before we get truly started, if you could maybe type in the chat box. Well, we've just met Christine, our friend from New York, so that's amazing. But anyone else, if you'd like to put your name and where you're from in the chat box, that would be amazing, so that we can say hello to you all. I have just come back from Sydney. I was in Sydney yesterday speaking at an event, and it was freezing. Not as freezing as Melbourne 2 weeks ago, but Sydney was very brisk yesterday compared to, say, the Gold Coast, which has been chilly, but we get our puffers out at 14. So, and I think I've just become a Queenslander now. So, like, all the same rules apply, and I don't go swimming till November. Yeah, Sandy's nodding. So this masterclass is about 90 minutes worth, and I want to keep it super engaging. So I'm going to be asking you to use the chat box a bit, and I can really customize this session to where you're at right now. I was just looking for my chat box, but it is actually over there on the left. If you have any questions at all during this masterclass, please pop them into the chat box. So we've got people from all over Australia: Pakenham. Hello, Nicole. Nicole from C21 Novocastrian in Charlestown. Maria Edwards from the nation's capital, Canberra. From NYC, from Bilola. Did I say that right? Bilola? No. Billowella. Yeah, okay. Sandy from Q State Properties down the road. So it's lovely to have you all joining us. So a few rules of the road. I am going to be talking fast. This is a new webinar, so I plan to spend about 90 minutes or so with you guys this morning. I don't exactly know how long it's going to take, but I am going to deliver as much of it as I possibly humanly can for you. Webinars, like, the thing is I am going to send you a replay, but if you can avoid the distractions or anything like that, unless you are doing a deal, I don't mind if you need to run off to an appraisal or a negotiation or something like that. But yeah, if you can put your full attention here, I promise you it will be worthwhile. Now, if you do need to run off to an appraisal, there's one thing for you Aussies that I wanted to point out to you today, and that is that the second round of AI-powered agents is going on what I would call pre-sale today. So this is only going out to you guys on the webinar here, the people that are currently on the wait list and people that have done the course before, because we're quite passionate that we want to keep the people that have done the course up to date, and you'll be rewarded for that as well. And this time we'll be offering 3 different ways of doing this. So we'll be offering self-paced. So that means you can go in and just do it yourself. We'll be offering a 6-week virtual again. and we'll also be offering in person, and we will be traveling around Australia. So if you do, just in case you do need to run off for any reason to do a deal, which I don't mind, I'll put the link in the chat box so that it's there. And if you have to run off, then you've got it. So without further ado, what I want to do is get stuck into some training about how to implement AI safely in your business. Like, some of you will know that a lot of what I do is about prompting and prompt engineering, and we've come up with some really smart ways to save time, money, win listings, market yourself better, all of that sort of thing. But what I'm picking up from a lot of people at the moment is that it's like, well, we've got all of these tactics. Now, how do we put them together in a plan to implement? So if that's you, if you could give me a wave or type into the chat box where you're at the moment, because this is what we're going to deal with today, is how do we get to a point where we can very easily make some smart steps and create big wins. Now, I'm just going to go through these slides a little bit, because we've already covered all that stuff. So most of you are here because you downloaded my action plan, my AI action plan, and which, again, thank you. I think that that is probably a really good basis for getting started with implementation. I'm going to go through some of those steps today. For those of you that are here at the end, I'm also going to give you an extra gift, like a bit of a companion that goes with that AI action plan. And yeah, so this webinar, I think, like, I started by calling it Small Steps, Big Wins, because I didn't want to scare anyone. Like, I thought, well, it'd be really cool if we could just take some small steps and get big wins, because I'm famous for that. You don't have to see the whole staircase to take the first step. And then I thought, actually, there's a lot of people taking small steps at the moment. There's a lot of people dipping their toes in the water, but they're not being terribly smart about it. And so that's why I changed the name to Smart Steps, Big Wins. And so the reason I say smart is because I think we've never been, and for some of you that have like been hanging around with me for a while, you'll know that I think that this is an incredible time. And if you look at the 4 resources that I talk about in the action guide, the 4 universal currencies, and I've called them in the action guide the 4 universal currencies of real estate, but really they're the 4 universal currencies of anything. Like, we all have a limited amount of time. We have a certain amount of information on hand at any one point in time. We have a limited amount of energy and usually a limited amount of money. When I came back from the US, I definitely had a limited amount of money. But when it applies to business, like, all of these make an impact. So do you agree that if you've got more of these universal currencies, life is much better than if you've got less? Like, is that true? Yes or yes? Yes. Okay. Sorry. Should be. Just making sure we're recording. Yes. So the thing is like, there hasn't really been a time since, like, something like electricity that we have been able to add just one thing to our lives across the board and create more of all of those things. And like, if you add generative AI, you've got more opportunities to create more revenue streams. Adding generative AI to some of your processes will create more time. If you've got more time, generally you can create more energy. And these days, I think it's not the person necessarily with the most information that wins. It's the person that delivers the information in the best way that wins, because we all seem to have access to the same information right now. And so, yeah, so you add AI to all of those things. And like I said, I think since electricity, there's not been a general purpose technology like this that has allowed us to increase our resources at hand. So, and the other thing is, some of you have seen the study. So Harvard Business School did a study on Boston Consulting Group consultants. They gave some of them AI. They didn't let some of them have AI. And they found over a period of time that 12.2% finished more tasks, 25.1% accelerated the number of tasks that they'd finished. So that's increasing time. And then 40% of them had higher quality results than those of them without AI support. So you can see there that the judicious use of AI there has definitely increased those things. And when I say AI too, I just want to be clear as well that I don't just mean ChatGPT anymore. I'm thinking about artificial intelligence as machine learning, as generative AI. And for those of you that have used Llama or Gemini or any of those other large language models, they all sit squarely in that. So there are ways that you can use artificial intelligence now, from machine learning, which is something like Crystal knows, all the way down to something like Perplexity, which is a better search engine. And there are all sorts of ways. And generally in the workshops and things like that, we work on tactics for supercharging things like learning and development, personalizing communications, automating content creation, and also summarization. And so some examples, I would say, saving time on repetitive tasks. So things like writing emails or writing listing descriptions, things like that. They're the basics in real estate. Analyzing large amounts of data. So if you want to look at things like your Google reviews, you can very easily look at what your competitive advantage is if you summarize your Google reviews in ChatGPT, and you can easily look at what your competitors' advantages are as well, because you could easily copy and paste them out of Google and see what they do well and see what they don't do well. You can also reduce mental and emotional energy. So I got back from Sydney yesterday and had a full inbox, and every time I look at a full inbox, I'd like want to slap my head and not really go and sit in a corner or something like that. And I do think that having a full inbox gives you a bit of a cognitive overload. But if you could rip through your inbox with responses to the tough emails and things like that, or communicate on a personal level with people in your inbox and do it quickly, then, that's less stress, which means more energy. And then the other thing is increasing ROI and OPEX on your marketing. So instead of like just doing the same thing all the time, and I know that a lot of agents like it does reduce a bit of cognitive burden to do copy and paste marketing campaigns and things like that. But with AI, we have an opportunity to personalize marketing campaigns in less time than it takes you to press Control C, Control V, which is pretty incredible. And then there's if I could summarize that for you into something that you can remember, supercharging AI if you need to have the conversation with the boss or with the IT manager or something like that, because in my travels, I'm still hearing that a lot of principals are terrified of AI and don't want it used in the office and things like that. But I call it the Asians. And I think that we can use AI in real estate boils down to legislation, communication, content creation, and summarization. So they are, like, if you can remember them, they're the 4 areas that you can really supercharge. And just a bit of a humorous take on that is a guy called the Marketoonist, who calls himself the Marketoonist. And he drew this cartoon, which I love, which says, AI turns a single bullet point into a long email I can pretend I wrote. And then AI makes a single bullet point out of this long email I can pretend I read. And I find myself doing that often. Now, how many of you downloaded the guide into the chat box? Yep. I think most of you probably did. And so in the guide on page 7, like, this is not the whole list of things, but, like in case you haven't picked up like some of the really key points in the guide, I just wanted to point out that I've listed a bunch of example tasks that real estate agents do on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, and what it looks like without AI, and then what it looks like with AI, and then how that impacts on a granular level your universal currencies. So I guess this is me just saying, if you didn't believe me before, believe me now. At least I hope you do. And you can see things like, if you want to summarize a market report, so you could either do it in a time-consuming manual way, or you can drop it into ChatGPT and say, give me the key points of this market report. If you want to summarize one of Jimmy Mackin's YouTube videos, he's a guy that's in Boston and I love to follow him because his content's always so good. You could sit there for an hour, or you could get a transcript and work out whether it is you wanted to watch this whole video. Generating marketing ideas, like you can actually get some wonderful marketing ideas straight out of ChatGPT, things that you might never have thought of. If you're sick of the old letters to Santa, you can ask ChatGPT for something different. So there's a heap of things there and a heap of ideas. And these are some of the tactics that we actually teach in the course. So we actually go down to a prompt level and look at the workflow and look at how we get these into action. But like, I'm going to give you some examples of actually, and one of them, Sandy's actually in the last course that we did, some of the clever things that agents are doing with AI right now. Would you like to see that? Yep. Okay. So this is Sandy from Q State Property, who's actually on the webinar now. She did some virtual staging. So this is all done by AI, which is pretty amazing, right? So the before picture on the left and then the after picture, and did not send it off to Box Brownie. I didn't move furniture anywhere. I think the subscription to this one costs about $40 a month. I don't know, Sandy, or you get some for free, I think. It's virtual state, yeah, super cheap. Yeah. Okay, how does virtual AI sit with copyright with a professional photographer? Do you should own your own photos. Who's that, by the way? It's not Mark Edwards. Just one point of order, everyone who's come in late. If you've come in as Mark Edwards, can you hit the 3 dots on the top right of your box while you're turning your video on, and just rename yourself so that I know that you're not Mark. It's because Mark sent his personal Zoom link out to everyone. So fun. All right. So this is someone that did the course last time. So this is Tristan Tomasino from Buxton. And just let me change my screen for a second. I'm just going to show you what he did. Can you all see this? This is Facebook.
Ciao a tutti, sono Tristan Tomasino, direttore generale di Buxton Inner West. Oggi vedremo cosa ci aspetta nel mercato immobiliare. Innanzitutto parliamo del clamore sulle case aperte degli ultimi 2 fine settimana.
So I'll drop the link in if anyone wants to see it a bit, see it in its entirety. But Tristan in Melbourne works in a very Italian area. He is Italian, his father's Italian, he only speaks English, but he did his normal market update in English and then uploaded it to HeyGen, which will translate videos and do a whole bunch of stuff. And it came out as Italian. And funny story, he sent it to his dad and said, "How's my Italian?" And his dad actually thought he'd been learning Italian. So that's how good HeyGen is. I'm going to show you a couple of brokerages in the United States now, because I'm friends with these guys and they've done some really interesting stuff in their HR department. So yeah, I'm back on there. So I'm just going to play this video for you. So tell me about the inspiration behind Leo and how did you approach its development?
Sure. Right from the beginning, the strategy at Real was that we were going to build things. And I know it sounds very weird, but you're in the industry and you would probably resonate with this, is like most brokerages in the industry are plumbers, is like how I call them. Like plumbers means like you buy a lot of third-party technology and you plumb it together with a single sign-on. You put an authentication layer on top of it, and you can sign in with my username, password into this tool, into this tool, this tool, and this tool. This tool does your transaction management. This tool does your document signatures. This tool does your billing for you. This tool does mailing campaigns for you. This tool produces PDFs for you, right? And it's not, I don't say this in a negative way. I think because our core business is brokerage, not building technology. So our thesis was that our operating margins were going to be tight and we're going to have to build something that was going to scale out of the gate. And that meant we had to automate everything. We had to capture everything. And then GPT came along and we had total control over our data. And it made the obvious use case, which was like, hey, let's put a LLM or a GPT on top of our data and make it meaningful. So what came out was, oh, every agent could have a personal concierge. So you can come in and ask a question like, how much money did I make last month? And that's an example of data that we have, that we've already crunched, that now becomes available in the AI and answer to you in a meaningful way. Here's another example. What do I need to do to get this deal done? They could literally today type it in, and our bot will respond, our Leo will respond, which deal? And will prompt you 5 deals. And you say, this one. And say, to close this deal, you need to upload document A, document B, and document C. Your broker will approve it, and then this deal will get done.
Yeah, wow. firstly, that's amazing. So how cool is that for those of you that haven't seen Sharon and Pritesh before? So basically what they're saying is that they've put like a ChatGPT layer over their CRM system, and their employees are able to go on and do things like how much commission am I owed? Or where do I find my group certificate? Like it's almost like a support desk. So in days gone by where if I'm a new employee, I'd be trying to look up the employee handbook to look at who the payroll person was and who someone else was. So I'd send an email to somebody who might have been in HR and wait for them to respond to me to say, you have to go to this person. But instead, all of that's being cut out by Leo, the chatbot, because they can go straight to Leo and get the answers. So is that cool? Yeah. Then you've got this is Serhant. So as in anyone watching Owning Manhattan. So what they're doing is they're using heavily Crystal in their business. Crystal knows, which we touched on a bit in the last round of AI powered agents. So you can see there that, and you might think Crystal doesn't know much about you because you're not on LinkedIn, but Crystal disprofiles everyone from all the public information that is available on you. And so what it will do is, I think the subscription's about $50 a month. But I often, if there's money at stake or if there's a deal at stake, I often won't send an email or communicate with a person until I've crystalled them. And then Crystal will give me information like what you can see up there, like how to persuade. This is Kylie, our editor, how to persuade Kylie. So talk about topics unrelated to work. Show them what you personally like about the product. Include graphics in your presentation. So you can see, like, I now have, if I crystal someone, I think that's like a verb, like Googling someone these days, but if I crystal someone and work out how to communicate with them before I communicate with them, then it's highly possible that I'm going to build rapport and trust quicker. So this is really clever what they're doing, and they're also building personal bots. So sometimes when you'll have a real estate coach jump online, and I know I've been guilty of this in the past too, and say, video is the future. You've got to be on video. Well, with Crystal, what you can do is you can crystal yourself and then go, now I need to create a marketing plan. And Crystal will come up with a marketing plan for your business that's actually tailored to you. And so if you're an introvert or something like that, and you don't like sticking your face in a camera, then Crystal will come up with different things. And so like the same way that talking to customers is not a one size fits all option, the way that you feel comfortable marketing your business, like a plan that you would follow through on, is also not a one size fits all option. And so now we have the ability to come up with these things on the fly, which is pretty amazing, right? Yeah. Coming back to Australia, so that's what Serhant are doing. Coming back to Australia, Toop, I think, are probably the most advanced. So we did a story with Genevieve Toop, and she was part of our AI-powered agents workshop in Adelaide. But what they've done is they've done something very simple, similar to Real. When Jen Toop saw what was happening with AI, she basically jumped on a plane, went over to Silicon Valley, went to some high-powered AI conference where there were people from the White House and all sorts of stuff over there. She said it was pretty interesting, and then came back and they implemented some pretty cool stuff into their business. So they've got a bot, it's called Toopy. And so they're lucky in terms of they have their own software developers and things like that. I mean, you don't need your own software developers necessarily anymore, but they do. And some of the things Jen said, Toopy can assist agents with a vast array of tasks, including writing listing descriptions, social media posts, brochure copy, and all of their agency agreements correctly filled out. So that's one thing that Toopy does do, pretty similar to Real. So they make sure that all the pieces are in place for a deal before it goes live. And they've also got Toopy Trainer. So that's like a different bot. So Toopy's been trained on key negotiation principles, as well as the style of Toop's best negotiators. And so this is probably something that you could actually do with, well, it's definitely something you could do with Crystal as well, because Crystal does deal with negotiation styles. So, and then you could possibly role play the same way. So there is, even though what I'm saying is, even though TUPE have their own developers, there are ways that you can implement something like this for yourself as well. And I mean, can you see how like implementing stuff like this would put you ahead of other agents? Like, let's just say you walk into a listing presentation and you're prepared with all the stuff, and stuff being a technical term, obviously, and someone else just walks in cold. And can you see how that would make a huge difference in the eyes of the vendor or the investor or whoever it is that you happen to be talking to? Speaking of vendors, some of Mark and I sold our house last year, so we were Mr. and Mrs. Vendor. The agent that, or one of the agents that came to talk to us knew who I was and knew what I'd been doing for the last 10 years. But there was one, and funnily enough, we actually gave them the listing. We should have known. No socks, and didn't know who I was, and Googled me. She said to me, the reason you should go with us is because our marketing is better than anyone else, and we use professional copywriter for listing descriptions. And some agents out there are using ChatGPT. And I went, you haven't Googled me, have you? Like, at all. And so that just went on, and I thought, well, what sort of a difference would it make? And this is where the proactive agent strategy came from for me, was thinking, how could I make this a better experience for vendors like me? And so what we've been teaching our students for the last, must be getting up to 18 months now, is this. So having the pre-list checklist, doing your research on Crystal, on the vendors, researching the property's features, a persona prompt workflow with previous open home feedback from the property if you can. So if you've got good data in your CRM system, you should be able to have a look at what the issues buyers or tenants had previously, and then maybe throw them into ChatGPT and see what comes up, so that you can go in. As I said, preparation is key here. Then go to your listing descriptions, your marketing plan, your listing presentation agenda, present to the owners, validate any assumptions, and then go in with email them back a post sign up video, and there's AI that touches every step of that, so that you're not preparing for one appraisal for 3 weeks, which is what it might have been before ChatGPT. Does that make sense? And then if you're in the property management side of things, it's pretty similar, but I actually think you can even get more clever in property management. So you would have your pre-list checklist. I would do a landlord something called empathy mapping. If you're not familiar with empathy mapping, just give it a Google. Research the property's features, go the persona prompt, like who would this property appeal to, and then pretty much the same thing as the sales process, but you might want to come up with a maintenance plan. Like if it's a property that you've been managing for a while, and maybe this is for your existing investors and landlords, you might start looking at a budget. And that was an idea that Claire came up with in the last round of AI Powered Agents Virtual. So it's now been baked into the workflow. And then, of course, the onboarding video, because you want to make yourself different and stand out. And so that boils down to the 3 things that we do teach in our course, which is communicating with more impact, creating GPTs to supercharge your workflows, and also to win a listing. Like, your goal, if you do the course with me, is to win a listing. And then I think it was Trent, might have been at Bar Camp actually. You had you said something really interesting too, didn't you, about days on market and stuff being lower using that sort of strategy. Was it you? Yeah.
Yeah,
I
we
think so.
did. Changed it around. Sorry, I'm a bit crook. Probably sound awful.
Oh.
Yeah, we basically listened to some of the stuff that was happening, and I think a lot of people are using the prompts just to say what the features are of the home. But we were then going on to say what the benefit is of that feature to the people, making it down into certain paragraphs, certain bullet points, so that everything looked the same with our ads. And yeah, our days on market has drastically been reduced.
Yeah. I think too, when you're talking to, and when you feel like you're actually being spoken to as a customer, like I can tell when marketing's for me. Like when Nine West send me an email saying shoes are on sale and they're in your size and you've got an event coming up, I know that that email is for me. But when someone sends me an email about a new listing that they've got in North Sydney, I know that's not for me because I don't live in North Sydney anymore. So like when marketing is targeted to you, it's much more likely to fall on to have a good effect and like build trust and relationships and things like that, rather than receiving a whole bunch of marketing material that's completely irrelevant. Do you agree? Yeah. Okay. So the question is, like, if there's all these benefits to this, why do people still not take action? And like, I have a bit of a theory on that, and that is, hang on, that's Tristan back again, speaking Italian. So, and this is maybe a bit of a funny take on it, but, you know, I think there's still some people out there that are thinking that this is a bit of a gimmick, like, let's transform our entire business using the generative AI I just used to write a poem about my dog. And I mean, we've all done the funny stuff. Like, I've done a fair bit of funny stuff at speaking events and things like that. But I do think the top reasons is lack of motivation. Like, I have a listing over here, so I'll sell that, and then I'll work out what this AI stuff is. But then they get another listing and don't work it out. I think the big one that I want to talk about next is that action has risks associated with it. And then there are some people like social media. Classic, we've always done it this way. So there was a guy I interviewed on the podcast, I think it was out last week. He's actually speaking at Elite Retreat, Dom the Bon. And the we've always done it this way thing. He said this is particularly dangerous because people don't want to change because of their baggage, like they've spent all this time coming up with a process or something like that. And then they don't want to change it because they've spent a whole heap of time coming up with it. And he said there's a fine line between baggage and experience. Like, if you view it as good, then it's experience. But if you view it as negative, it's baggage. And a lot of people will cart that baggage around with them for years and years and years, even though they've just been given the biggest gift of, well, we've just been given a huge gift. The other thing is, like, I'm no good at it. I'm not technical. That's the other excuse. Like, I just go to pieces when someone mentions AI. And then, like, the other thing is just a fear, like it's going to take my job or something like that. And so what I want to deal with today really is probably deal with mostly actually is the risks. Has anyone ever had a bad experience with AI? Can you guys put into the chat? Has anyone had an oh my God moment or something like that? And I don't mean the ones where you go, oh, geez, I wish ChatGPT is having a bad day. I better bribe it $20 to come up with something better. I don't know that works, by the way. Anyone had any? There's been a few that I've noticed that have come about. Here are the risks are, the biggest risks are, I've tried bribing it and it didn't work. Yeah, no, it doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. So wrong screen. So, I mean, taking action does have risks. And this is, like, I've written a fair bit about this in the guide, but number one, there's data risks. So everyone around the world has different privacy laws. And I think you've got to be careful of what sort of data you put into ChatGPT. Like, if you don't have the corporate sort of walled off version where it's not using the data that you put in to train its models, there's probably some risks there, although I don't know that if I entirely trust that. You've got human touch challenges, like you've got people generating stuff in AI and then pressing copy and paste and then putting it out there. And I think AI is not to be trusted in that way. I think that a human should always be in the loop, or there should always be some sort of editing going on. And I've made people swear to it with their hands on their hearts before. I think there's a lot of people that are undertrained out there. Like, it's like, I can use ChatGPT because it's so easy to use, but they don't use it well. And they think that they don't need training because it gives them reasonable responses, when really it's like it could be so much better. And then the final thing is ethical concerns. So you'll notice if you read stories on a lead agent that we call out when we're using ChatGPT, do you notice that? And that's an ethical thing of mine, because I think that people still want to know. Like, it doesn't matter how deep we go into this rabbit hole of AI. I think as humans, we want to know when we're being talked to by a robot. And I did this test on AI-powered agents the other day of this as an Aussie company. And if you call my phone number at the moment, it'll be answered by an AI. And basically, it's a bit like that hairdresser thing from a few years ago. Do you remember that Google, I want to make a hair appointment, that sort of made the world stop and go, oh, this AI is a real thing. This AI, if you call, oh, I've got to stop pressing play on Tristan somehow. But yeah, if you call my phone number 0445 509 007, it will get picked up by an AI. It will ask you if you want to leave a message or if you want to leave your email address so I can email you back. But it does, what I like about it is it announces that it's an AI. It's not trying to pass itself off as a human, which some of those creepy, has anyone ever been dialed by the wine salespeople in Australia, cellar masters? And they try to pass themselves off as humans, and I think that will break trust very, very, very quickly. So they're the things that I think. Now, did you see, I was going to give you an example. I mean, is this fake or is it real? So
in local news, an unusual request has trotted into the office of property manager Sam at 30 Hoon Street, Broadbeach Waters. A resident has inquired about the possibility of keeping their horse Thunder on the property. Despite the charming appeal of having a horse by the canal, it seems the backyard at Hoon Street is a bit too cosy for Thunder's liking. The enthusiastic owner even offered to cover all costs for a stable and secure fencing, but due to space limitations and council regulations, the request has been politely declined. Thunder may have to find a more spacious pasture for his adventures. And that's the tail end of our news for tonight. Thanks for watching and have a great evening.
So fake or real? Into the chat box if you don't want to yell it out. AI, is it AI or is it real? Fake. Yep, it's AI generated. It's been generated from 30 seconds of my voice. 30 seconds, okay? 30 seconds. And 5 minutes of video of me recording a podcast. So when you see things on the news like Elon Musk has uploaded a video of Kamala Harris using her voice and it's been fake, you can see why people might start worrying about that sort of thing, because it will get harder and harder and harder to be able to tell if what you're dealing with is real or if it's fake. Even those robo wine callers, a lot of people have been, the robo wine salespeople callers. There you go. That's what you call them. A lot of people have thought they're real. Like, they sound real when they call you. And this is going to be, like, I think one of the problems for real estate agents, because at the moment, the way that we identify ourselves is via voice, video, those sorts of things. So I heard someone at this conference I was at yesterday start talking about cones of silences and cages and all that sort of thing. And it really, definitely, that scared me. But it's definitely something that we're going to have to address. And so this one, excuse the language, this was one that happened. And I think Martin Casado, he's actually like an angel investor in AI companies, and he nearly got taken for a ride by someone pretending to be his dad, like they'd cloned his father's voice. A finance worker nearly, and this says that they paid it out, but I think it was nearly paid it out because there was one check or balance on the end of it that stopped. But there was a meeting with a chief financial officer via Zoom, and this worker nearly paid $25 million to a scammer, which is scary. Now, the way that, this is actually being used for good in the Ukraine. So let me play you this one.
Dear members of the media and the public, I welcome
Can you hear
you.
that?
My name is Victoria Shi. I have been created by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine using artificial intelligence to provide you with timely and high-quality information on consular affairs. I am a digital person. That means that the text you hear was not read by a real person. It was generated by artificial intelligence. I will carry out a number of tasks. First and foremost.
So she looks quite real, doesn't she? And it's an interesting way of getting news out there. But, you know, like I'm seeing AI news readers all over the place now. But, well, even myself, actually, as an AI news reader. But you can see, let me just put that QR code back up on the system so you can see where that QR code is.
Where the text of this statement
If you
is
hold your
posted.
phone up to that, that will show the
Videos with my
text of what she's
statements are those
saying
that contain
to
such a
prove
code
that it's
and a
real.
link.
So that's one way that people are getting around it. But, you know, like the worry of things like the recent Optus breach, things like that. So what I want you to do is just take a moment, and I noticed all the people that said fake are the people that know me well, by the way. I think if you didn't know me, it would be harder, much harder to tell. But just take a moment, like, and think about the AI tools that you're using now. Like, what are some of the AI tools that you're using? Maybe just chuck them into the chat box and let me know what sort of work have you done to figure out how secure they are. Like, has anyone done any investigation or anything like that? Anyone got an IT department that kind of looks at it and goes, Jasper for text? I think they're pretty secure. My point being is that, like, we're being bombarded daily, and I test a whole lot of stuff on AI-powered agents, and some of you have seen me do that. But to be fair, not really thought about it until now. Yeah, like, who's got your data? The first thing I thought of, because I have been using, I don't think is Reader really AI though? Reader's kind of like, yeah, I'm not sure. What I was going to say is that, like, we think about Facebook, for example, because they've lost a lot of trust over the years in different things that they've done. And so these days, when Llama came about, I thought, oh, this is nice. We've got a free large language model that is cheaper than ChatGPT and Claude and all of those other ones. But then I thought, oh, but then I'm giving all of my information to Mark Zuckerberg. Oh, and then I thought, but he's already got it all anyway. Like, so it's like you go down that rabbit hole of like who actually has the data and who owns the data. But I'm just like, I'm not saying that there's a lot you can do about it, but what I can tell you is that awareness is key. Like, where is my data going? So up to now, and as I promised you, I have been talking fast. So what's been the most valuable thing that you've picked up so far before we crack into these 12 steps to implementation? So I can take a break and have a sip of my coffee. Here we go. Here it is. Here's one Mark prepared earlier after he sent you all his Zoom link. What's been the most important thing you've picked up so far? The thing I hope you're picking up is that AI is a gift. Like, it truly is a gift. If I think when I was building a lead agent years ago, that if I'd had access to AI, I wouldn't have needed as many people. I would have been able to create content heaps easier. Wouldn't need a proofer. Reminder about the crystal research. Yeah. Maybe look at a company policy on ethics. Yeah. Yeah. Might have something for you today on that, Claire, actually. Need to invest in my own. Yeah, I do think you do, like, because I think knowledge is power. And if you can go to your principal or your leader and say, look, this is what I've learned, this is how we can do it safely, I think you'd be well positioned. Summarizing Google reviews and comparing to other agents. Yeah. It's a really good way. So if we were still doing transform, the old USP question, that's how I'd be attacking it now. Like, I'd be looking at my own Google reviews. I'd be looking at all my competition's Google reviews. I'd be doing the AI research, and then I'd go, all right, where is the intersection between my strengths? Like, let's take Crystal as well, throw Crystal in that, bring back the transform AI version. Okay, that's an interesting idea. Okay, there will be. But if it won't be the old transform, it'll be a new version. But yeah, like, if you could mash all those together, you could come up with something unique, because a lot of the USPs that I see people come up with are not really that unique, are they? Like, everyone says that they've got passion and purpose. So much passion. Anyway, all right, let's crack on, because we've got about half an hour left. So, right. So 12 steps to safer implementation. So I just want to talk you through this roadmap, like, that I sat and thought about for, like, I don't know, a week. I had some meetings with the REIs and actually thought, well, what do you need to do in what order? And funnily enough, I really thought hard about 1 and 2, like which one was the most important and which one do you do first? Because I ended up putting explore and play at 1 and identifying high impact areas at number 2. And the reason I've done that is because, and it was somebody said yesterday, like someone actually said to me, so like if you were a BDM, how would you go about an appraisal? How would you go about winning the business? And I basically gave them the process flow map that I gave you guys earlier. And she said to me, but why don't more people do that? And I said, because they don't know that it's there. Like, unless you actually start playing with things, you don't know what you don't know, if you know what I mean. And then at least then you know what you don't know. And then you can move forward from there. So I think it's arbitrary whether one or two comes first. But the other thing too is then I think you've got to think about the high impact areas of your business, establish your ethical guidelines, look at training and supporting staff. And those 4, I'm going to go into a bit of detail with them shortly. But then 5, I've got organising your data, because there will come a time when your CRM system provider will allow you to communicate with your database via natural language, like it's a ChatGPT interface. Then security, so like where is your data going? You might want to implement your own version of ChatGPT or something like that. Then you've got at 7, starting with a pilot program, like meaning if you've got an office of 30 people or 50 people or a team of 10 or something like that, you might want to try it with one person who's a little tech savvy first, and then write an SOP and then roll it out. Then you might want to like look at your integrating the tools into workflows. So if you've got your workflows documented, how do you put those tools into a workflow? Stay informed and adapt. So this is an ongoing thing. So you really need to stay on top of what's happening out there. And then I think something that a lot of people don't do with any tool, and I'm guilty of this too, is you've got to monitor performance. And so in some ways, like I can say that anecdotally, I think that ChatGPT saves time and money and that sort of thing. But how can you actually prove it? Like, could you go, well, I used to answer 10 emails a day and now I answer 50 or something like that. But how do you monitor that? And so that is probably the thing, that if you're struggling to get your principal or broker or whatever on board, then that's probably the proof that they'd be looking for. Then you've got things like an innovative culture. So if the culture in your office is not too innovative or a bit, we've always done it this way kind of thing, then that probably needs to change. And then there's the change management process. So talking to people that work for you about their roles changing and things like that, because I think another interesting thing that Dominic said on the podcast, and as I said, highly recommend you have a listen to it. McKinsey's recently done a study where they spent, let's just say your budget is $100,000 to spend on AI tools. 30% of it is spent on the tools and 60% is spent on the change management. So the actual helping people through that process, because the humans are much harder to get out of their set ways, because change is hard. We all know change is hard, than say, like just installing a piece of software. And I think we all know that. Like, it's the same for any software, whether it's a CRM system or an inspection management system or whatever. Often people will spend all the money on the tech, but no money on the humans. And so I just want to point that out to you. So that's like a whistle stop through this. And this is actually, the whole lot is the new deploy and dominate module out of the new course. But I want to go through the first 4 with you in a bit more detail. So is that okay? Yep. Cool. Rightio. Am I going too fast? Are you all okay? Okay. All right. So the first one is explore and play. And I think you've got to look at both general purpose tools like ChatGPT, Claude, etc., and also the real estate tools. So there's a few that are out there at the moment. Propic is one. Domain have got LeadScope, which I think tells you who they think is going to sell first. I'm not sure. I think it's out there in the wild now, like who they think is going to list next. I know there's a few propensity to list models in the US as well. And there's some other tools, like I came across flythroughs.ai, which is like the world's first natural language search portal for buyers. So you can actually go on and say, I'm looking for a house with 2 bedrooms in Austin, Texas, and I want it to be close to a good secondary school or something like that. Whereas now, a buyer has to go to REA and say, I want a 2-bedroom unit in a particular suburb, and then it'll give you surrounding suburbs. But this natural language thing will actually look for likes. This suburb is like that suburb. And so it gives people that are actually home buyers a completely different experience. So and then there's also all the other generative AI tools. So there's the HeyGens, that was Fly Homes. There's flythroughs.ai, which is like drone footage, turns your iPhone footage into a drone footage. Imagine saying goodbye to advertising portals. Yeah, I don't know. Might be able to, if your marketing's good enough. And with ChatGPT, it could be. Yeah, there's a whole bunch and then there's all of the video generators, which haven't really hit their strides yet. But these days you can animate just normal photos and things like that. You can create images for blog posts. So much you can do. But as Jerry Seinfeld once said, the only way to become a better comic is to create better jokes. And the only way to create better jokes is to write every day. And so when you've got people like Seth Godin running around saying, if you don't have 30 minutes squirreled away in your diary to play with these AI tools every day, I can't help you. I don't know what you're doing. That's pretty telling. So yeah, so you really got to use it. And that's the only thing is like over the last 18 months or so, I suppose, like I've gotten really good at using it because I've been using it. And that's the only way you get good at using stuff. So some things to consider. One is when you're playing with these tools and you're playing with them yourself, you want to consider how easy they are to use and what the learning curve is. You want to consider how cost effective they are. So have a little spreadsheet that has what they're going to cost, what the lifetime cost is, and what their ROI potential is. So actually start looking at like what it is you want to do with that tool. How scalable are they? Like, what is it going to cost? So I looked into, we're a Google house, so we're on G Suite for everything here. And then I looked into what it would cost to put us onto Gemini as co-pilot. And the subscription value racks up significantly as you add users. So they're the things that you need to watch out for. Vendor reputation and support. So like I did a bit of research into that answering service before I installed it. But really, I guess we don't really know too much about OpenAI yet. But, who are they? Do we trust them? Are they big enough? Are they going to go out of business? What happens if they go offline? Is it going to impact my business? All of those questions are things that you should be thinking about. And then finally, and I left the best to last here because I think that the customer experience, the answering service, it's called Lucy, I think, by Curious something. It's on AI powered agents. It's the last thing I wrote about. And the final thing is customer experience, because I think in real estate, we are bombarded with tools on a daily basis. Am I right? There will be a vendor around the corner going, here, use my thing, whatever it is. And here's a million reasons why you should use my thing. And then we end up with a cupboard of Fiona Blaney, who's quite funny when she talks about this, is we end up with a cupboard of these tools and we don't know how it is. It's like my kitchen cupboard in there. Like the other day, I decided I needed a Ninja Creamy. Now that is really good, but I couldn't fit it in the cupboard with all of the other tools that I thought I needed at one point. But the one question that I would encourage you to think about is, how is this going to impact my customer experience? What is it going to add to my customer experience? Like if you're thinking about how do I use ChatGPT, how do I use it to create buyer personas, to create a listing description from that, it's probably going to impact really positively. It's probably going to bring more money in the door. If you're going to use ChatGPT to, I don't know, write a poem to go in an email that's probably going to get plastered all over news.com.au or something like that, it's probably not going to impact your customer experience well. Am I making sense here? Yep. Okay, cool. Ready for me to move on? Yep. Okay. So the other thing is like looking at high impact areas. So if you've got limited resources, and again, like if you go back to the 4 universal currencies, it's not always money. Sometimes it's people. Like if you've got limited resources, if you have a think about it and maybe even put into the chat, what are some of the areas of pain or average customer experience in your business that could be improved with AI? Like start thinking about it from the opposite direction. Like what do people complain about? And this is another good place where you can go to Google reviews or some of these other places. Like, and even if you've got a squeaky clean review record, you could go to your competitors' Google reviews and look at what they complain about. And then go, all right, well, how might I fix this? And that's not a bad exercise to do when, like, if you just want to write these things down, just make a quick list. And then just first thing in the morning when you've got a cup of tea in your hand, and then start looking at solutions. So is anyone sort of thinking, like, has anyone got any like bright ideas now that they want to share with us in the chat? Anyone? Any areas of pain that you think might be solvable by AI? I told you I was interactive. I did warn you all at the beginning. Yeah. The maintenance pain. I don't think that's a generative AI thing. We were talking about this yesterday at this prop tech summit. I actually think that someone's got to come up with, and they have in America, there's a group that manages short-term rentals. And I think I wrote about this one as well. And they do it via the Internet of Things. So the Internet of Things being the devices in the home are internet connected, and they can tell you when they're going to break down. Or the machine learning algorithm can tell you how long that Samsung, actually it's a Panasonic air conditioner behind me that looks like it's older than me. And you might want to, like, I see a future, and I have done for a long time, where there's a logbook or something like that you can draw on, like how long, what is the life of a Panasonic air conditioner, and then start looking at what the maintenance plan is for your landlord. Does that make sense? Because it's going to break down, so you might as well budget. It's going to need replacing at some point, so you might as well budget for it. That's all I'm saying. And then, like, your landlord will thank you for it, because it's hard, because like sometimes you've got mum and dad investors who are running everything on a shoestring. And imagine if you could be proactive about maintenance with them. So things to consider in this way: where do you spend the most time? Like, so think about where you spend the most time. Like, where would you want to save time and improve that universal currency there? Start writing down what tasks are repetitive and time consuming. Think about which part of your job was easier or faster. For me, like it's scripting videos and stuff like that. Thankfully, it is a bit faster now. And again, what experience do you want to create for your customers? So, like, we always should be having the customer at the center. Fair enough? All right, the third thing is establishing ethical guidelines. So I did spend a bit of time thinking about what it is we should have, like what should be included in like an AI policy. First of all, does anyone have an AI policy? No? So everyone's just using AI any way they want to? And your teams are? Fine. Just one moment here, because this is the gift. See, you're all still with me. I'm going to drop it into the chat box as soon as I find it. So this is, I'll just give you a bit of a preview. So this is a template, and I do think you should get, if you're going to put something in place, often something is better than nothing, but you should definitely have it reviewed by your legal team. But I think that the things that it needs to cover are things like, what is generative AI? What are the guidelines? Ask your employees not to put personal information into ChatGPT. What is your ethical AI usage policy going to be? It'll be different in the States, but most countries these days have got some sort of an ethics framework for using AI. I mean, Australia has one. So like it's useful to reference that, I would say. That's Australia's ethics framework. And I'm pretty sure that there's one for the US and other people. I think the US one was actually just signed. Or Apple just signed up to the US one, I think. Then and that goes through a bunch of stuff like human-centered values, fairness, like you don't want to use AI to have biases or anything like that. Then in Australia, and again, it would be the same in different countries as well, like New Zealand and the US, the REIA has their own code of ethics. And so if you're running a real estate practice in Australia, you probably want to make sure that you're aligned with them. I think it's good practice to always have a human in the loop, like that there's human oversight, regular training. And this one's the big one actually, is that you nominate, and particularly if you're in a larger office or you're in a team, is that you nominate someone to be your like AI champion. And they're the person that's responsible for staying informed about AI. And like if anyone has a problem with anything like that, then they go to your AI champion. And that way you can keep on top of it. I think it was virtualstaging.art, wasn't it, Sandy? Yeah, it's on AI powered agents. If you search for virtual staging, you'll find it. And then the other thing is like there's some general things here, like so don't use AI to make employment decisions. Make sure that there's a human in the loop there. Follow data protection guidelines. Do not pass off AI generated work as your own. Don't go integrating stuff without approval. Again, this is if you're in a bigger office. Monitor and reporting, non-compliance, and review your policy. So this is the sort of plug and play thing, but I do seriously recommend that, particularly where privacy is such a hot topic. Well, privacy is a really hot topic in Australia at the moment, right? You all agree, like everyone's going, oh, like how much data do I have to keep? What's safe? All that sort of thing. I think it is worthwhile getting a lawyer to make sure that your AI policy and your privacy policy, for example, don't conflict. And there's some other documents and things like that that you should look at as well. So I'm just trying to think. In the US, there would be the Fair Housing Act, I would say. I'm sure the National Association of Realtors has got some kind of an AI policy. In Australia, there's also the ACCC, like you don't want to be using AI to do anything anti-competitive. All of these other sort of things, anti-money laundering, that's become quite topical in Australia. And then you've got all of these other bodies. So like it is quite, if you have people using AI in your office and you're not thinking about this sort of stuff, the time to start thinking about it is now. Because, for example, if people are putting personal data into ChatGPT and your privacy policy doesn't cover that, then I would say, and I'm not a lawyer, that you're probably not covered if something goes wrong. Not that I want anything to go wrong, obviously, but, you know, that's where we're at the moment. So what I'm going to do is I am going to drop this into the chat box as a thank you for listening to me warble on. How's that? There you go, right there. So if you want to download that, it's got some instructions and things like that that you might want to have a read of and think about. So we're on the home stretch here. So things to consider, like, and these are the things that I've listed in my template privacy policy, is human in the loop. Make sure that there's some sort of acceptable use clause, transparency measures, protecting your client's privacy and confidentiality, and other legislation. So, and from a customer perspective, I've shown this diagram quite a lot, is the things that you need to, the human in the loop stuff. Is this you? Is this AI plus person, or is this AI? And so this is where, like, number 4, I think continuous education, nominating an AI champion, and continuous adaptation is really super important. Does that make sense? All right. So we are riding the exponential part of this curve. So this was Jim Fan, who's I think one of the NVIDIA leadership team, and this was January. And like, I'm sure everyone can feel it, that this AI thing is not going anywhere. People are using it now. And the thing is you really want people to be using it well, because you don't want to end up here. And I think this is probably the whole point of what we've been talking about today. And by the way, I think that was hideously unfair. of news to print that story. But, you know, what I think and what happens in the world are two completely different things. Do you agree? And I mean, you guys probably thought that it was stupid and horrible, and let's throw a few other choice words at it. But it's like, because the media love to beat up real estate agents. REA they told me actually that they've put a filter on for listing descriptions so that it will filter out. Can you see halfway down? Please help me write a rental listing or a rental advertisement or something like that. Now, this is a really poor ChatGPT prompt, so please don't take a photo of it and think that it's good. But, you know, they're trying to put filters on it now to get rid of this stuff. But I also heard Tara say to me that they don't always work. So again, I think training is key, and like making sure that you reinforce to your teams that there needs to be a human in the loop. And so I guess the final thing is, like, a lot of this stuff that we've been talking about today is part of AI powered agents, which is pre-sale starts today. I feel like ticker tech, but it's got 5 modules in it this time. So set for success, prompt engineering perfection, extra brain, extra hands, and deploy and dominate. A lot of what we've been talking about today is the deploy and dominate thing, because there's no point learning all the fun tactics if you don't have a solid plan for implementation. And I think I've probably already pretty much convinced you that I created this little efficiency calculator with ChatGPT actually. And I just put in what's the average hourly rate and the number of team members, and use the Harvard speed up factor. So the study that I talked about earlier. And even like, if you could realize just a little bit of that speed up factor, you can see that the time and money effort in learning about it is really worthwhile. And I think our course is $795 for the in-person workshop, which includes morning tea, lunch, and afternoon tea, snacks. And so I think if you were to win one listing, I think the ROI is like 0.33% if your average commission with a split is like $4,000 or something like that. So comparatively speaking, it's not too bad. And you have the choice now as to whether you want to go without AI, or, which is hard. If I was to give you a gardening analogy, is like you've got to get out with the hoe yourself, which I have done and is hard, and hope it rains and hope that you get sun and things like that. Or you can take the other route with AI and create a garden rapidly. And there will be people that are doing that, and I've shown you people who are doing that. So I do think that like AI will create new opportunities for everyone, but the curious and the bold will win. Now, so if you don't mind, I'll give you like a little bit of a rundown of what's in AI-powered agents for those of you that have and haven't done it. So you know that the Deploy and Dominate module has been completely rebuilt, but we go through so the speed model has been enhanced with all of the new things that have happened these days. I'll pop the link in the chat again in case you guys want to sign up, because these workshops did sell out last time. All right, here you go. So this is where we're going. So we've kept the cost the same. So we're doing 3 sessions. One is the in-person workshops, as I said, and we're going to a couple of regionals this time as well. And we're doing one on the Gold Coast. And I've made sure it's a Friday so that if anyone wants to come to the Gold Coast, spend a weekend on the Gold Coast, you can. And yeah, so that's the in-person one. So that's 1 day accelerated. And then we've got 6 weeks virtual, starting on the 29th of August. So that's in about a month. And then we've also got the self-paced option. So what happens is I've put some links here, and I'll just put this back in the chat box for you. Sorry, I didn't do that. All right. So this is refreshed. So everyone's going to get access that does either of these two to the March recordings. So that means that you'll be able to, and there'll be prerequisites. So the 2 first modules, which were set for success and prompt engineering perfection, you'll be able to access those straight away. So you'll be able to start prompting better. And then we'll kick off the virtual, and you'll be able to get the most up-to-date information rather than what happened in March. The other thing too is we have got a bunch of other stuff. So you can actually have a look at what's in there and what you'll learn. You'll have a bunch of other stuff that you'll have access to that the people that did virtual and in person didn't get last time, which is we have notes for each module. We have worksheets for each module, completely revamped module 5. and there's also a GPT. So if you want to ask the course, like it's called AI Powered Agents Bot. So if you want to ask about any of the course content, you can do so with the GPT. The other thing is for you guys that are on this webinar and are on the pre-sale thing, there is another bonus that I'm going to give you. Yeah, you can book the pre-sale directly from this link that I've given you. But there's something else, and that is we are doing a VIP option. So that is an extra session where we're going to build a customized coach bot a la Sirhan. And I'm going to give you a 30-day social media sprint, which is like a bit like Transform. So those things next week, when we go on official sale, they will be $197. But if you sign up now during the pre-sale, they are free. So you'll only pay $795. And that is it. So I might just open to, shall I open a Q&A? I'm sure, like, are your heads spinning? I saw a couple of head explosions earlier where everyone was just going, no, I don't have an AI policy. But anyway, yeah, so that's it. That is the deal until Monday, is that, and yes, if you've done it before, look out for an email from me, because we want you to keep your skills current, and there will be a coupon code for you special people that have done it before. So, and I would love to see some of you in my course. I had someone say, I want 6 people in my office to do your course, like yesterday, and put his business card in my hand. And I said, you better get in quick, because they did sell out last time. Is the deal today the cheapest now? Yeah, we won't be discounting these ones just because they were a sellout last time. And also, it would take less than one management to return your investment. Is the course relevant for me? I'm not an agent, but I'm an outsourcing inspection company and I market to agents. Yeah, I guess if you want to. In the last course, we had all sorts of people. Like, we did have a supplier in there, and she said it was very enlightening from the point of view of the things that agents go through. And I don't know if there's any buyer's agents on here, but we also had some buyer's agents, and I didn't expect there to be any buyer's agents this morning, but there's a different empathy map for buyer's agents. Like, you're going to go and look up empathy mapping, yeah? Just because it's slightly different. So yeah, Narelle, I would, look into it, definitely. Any other questions? It doesn't have to be about what we've talked about today. It can be about anything. I've still got about 2 minutes left here, so I'm happy to answer anything you like. Or if you want to unmute and sing it out. Have you all learned something today? At least one thing? Cool. Great session. Oh, yeah, nice. Well, I'll see you soon at Elite Retreat, right, Trent? Are you packed? Are you booked in the fake tan? That's a personal question to ask a man, isn't it? I did ask Peter Brewer the other day if he'd booked in his fake tan though. And he came straight back at me and said, I've ordered the mankini. So I came straight back at him again and said, can you order 2? Mark will need one as well. Oh, all right. All right. Has anyone else got any questions or anything like that? You've all downloaded your links. You've saved those links. I will follow you up with an email though, and a replay and all of that sort of thing, because I'm sure you want to unpack bits of that over the next however long. I know you will, Claire. So yeah. All right then. Well, I might leave you all to it. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure and a privilege. And I thank you to everyone that joined us from overseas. So thank you, Christine, Claire, anyone I've missed. It's been really lovely to meet you. And yeah, I hope that was useful. Make sure you go through that guide, save those links. Big love, and hopefully I'll see you on the road soon.